Welcome to the Kaizorian experience. Over here, we're going to be talking about everything African. We're going to be having debates, discussions, entertainment, as well as learning about business, art, history, and everything in between. Cultural, tribalism, and everything. We're going to be out here debating with some really interesting stuff. So, like the video, share the video, and make sure you subscribe. Make sure you subscribe. Subscribe for the best experience ever. This is the biggest channel on the Afrosphere. So come and join the team, become a Kaizorian, and join the Kaizorian Empire. Universally exist within myself, within this premise, and I exist within this bluebird in the sky. I'ma fly like the blue sky. I'ma fly like bird in the sky. I'ma fly like bluebird in the sky. I'ma fly like bluebird in the sky. I'ma fly like bluebird in the sky. I'ma throw my bluebird in the sky. I'ma soar like bluebird in the sky. I'ma soar like bluebird in the sky. I'ma fly like bluebird in the sky. I'ma fight like bluebird in the sky. I'ma eat like bluebird in the sky. I'ma be like bluebird in the sky. I'ma be bluebird in the sky. I'ma be free, bluebird in the sky. I'ma be free like bluebird in the sky. I'ma be like bluebird in the sky. Back again like the second coming. Strumming my vocal cords like the hummingbird in the sky. Y'all can't deny this. Real rap lyrics, it's like I ain't got no rhyming through the sky limit. What is skin tone, shade of color, but a parallel form of frequency like a ringtone on your phone. Melanin expression, tied up in the universe, feeling like God's. Is this really us? Is it serious? Is it really wrong to be diverse? I'm a divergent, immerse myself like an ocean beneath this waves. Be a divergent, born to be different. Indigo child, wild like canary. Born to be a bluebird in the sky, flying high like a bluebird in the sky. I'ma fly high, bluebird in the sky. Yeah, bluebird in the sky. I'ma fly high, bluebird in the sky. I'ma be like bluebird in the sky. I'ma be like bluebird in the sky. Everybody scream bluebird in the sky. I'ma fly high, bluebird in the sky. I'ma be like bluebird in the sky. Yeah, bluebird in the sky. Everybody, bluebird in the sky. I'ma be like bluebird in the sky. I'ma be like bone black, sweet like a berry. Flying high like a canary. Scary with my hoodie on. Hating on my vibe on the street that you'll be feeling my frequency of the song. But I know that I ain't never ever gonna be ever the same. But I know. Okay, shout out Muhyiddin. I'll look into it later on. Shout out to you guys. Welcome to the Kaizorian Show. This is not a dusty show. This is one that's a little bit more serious. This one is about the Eurobonds and the defaulted countries that took on a loan and were unable to pay the loan back. Now, we know the countries that have defaulted. Kenya did not default. Kenya did manage to actually service its debt. And through various different means, the country was able to actually acquire a lot of the euro dollars in order to pay back the debt. However, Ethiopia has defaulted, right? Ethiopia joined Zambia and Ghana. And these countries, right, if you see Ghana's inflation rate, right? Inflation rate in Ghana rate in 2023 is over 20-something%. I'll bring up the right figures, right? Ghana's inflation rate is actually reached basically around 30%. What that means is, right, Ghanaian cities, right, the economy of Ghana has lost its value compared to the dollar by over 30%. That's more or less what the inflation rate is. So Ghana's economy has collapsed. Ghana, unfortunately, right now is suffering for it because they did not pay the serviced amount of debt back in the euro bonds that they took. Now, you guys might be wondering, what's an Eurobond, right? In simple terms, a Eurobond is just a loan that you get from another country, usually a country, right? It could be a bank, but usually it's a country. You get a loan, right? You go to, so this is how a Eurobond works, right? I'm simplifying it here so people understand it. But in simple terms, imagine the UK banks or the Central Bank of United Kingdom, they want to raise some money. They want to raise some money, right? They have a 10-year amount of time and they say, okay, we need some money. Okay. So they say, right now we have 2 billion in our banks in the UK, right? So UK says we got $2 billion. We are going to sell these as bonds. So we'll give the country this literal $2 billion, right? However, we will actually sell them a bond, meaning in 5 years, they're going to pay 6% interest. If they take a 10-year bond, they might pay 6%, 6.5% interest. So, of course, the longer the repayment plan is, the higher the interest rate. But, there's risk involved. Will that country still be functional after that 10 years, for example, right? So it's a loan, more or less, right, given by a country. Now, I'm not going to go into specifics. Technically, if it's a Eurobond, the currency that's denominated that the UK is giving out has to be different than its own currency to another country that its own currency is also different. So, for example, the UK cannot give a Eurobond in Great British pounds. That will be called a foreign bond, right? It's not the same thing. So, a Eurobond is like a UK government, which is currency is Great British pounds, gives a Eurobond in either euros to Kenya, or gives it in dollars or yen or any other currency that is not the same currency as itself or the recipient's currency, right? So that's a Eurobond, right? So what happened so far is Ethiopia took on a bond of $1 billion. Now, Ethiopia was unable to service the debt. They were supposed to pay off $33 million on the 8th of December, and they weren't able to do it, right? So right now, they have defaulted on it, on the repayment. And what that means is Ethiopia will find it very difficult to get more Euro bonds in the future because these payment plans are very strict, right? And they're very specific. And these payment plans have to be kept. If they're not kept, guess what? No one else will give you the loan. This is not like a loan from IMF, right? International Monetary Fund, where you can default, then they come in, they restructure the way your economy runs. They tell you have to let more foreign companies come in. No, this is not like that. This is very different. This is one of those loans that doesn't even have a security, meaning you don't have to put collateral. Ethiopia did not need to put its dam, the Great Renaissance Dam, as collateral in order to receive this bond. No, they trusted Ethiopia because Ethiopia is a sovereign nation. Usually, the kinds of entities that can get these Eurobonds are either governments and sometimes very large corporations with a proven record of actually paying its debt. Of course, they're not going to give it to dusty individuals because they will default, right? But a government that is something that runs a sovereign nation is usually the recipient of this Eurobonds. So let me share my my page quickly so that we can see what happened with Ethiopia. So here's Ethiopia defaults on Eurobond repayment. So let's make it a little bit bigger so people can see over there, right? Ethiopia became Africa's third default in as many years on Tuesday after it failed to pay a 33 million coupons payment, right? This is part of the interest rate payments that they give back to their investors, right? On its international government bond. Africa's second most populous country announced earlier this month that it intended to formally go into default, having been under severe financial strain in the wake of COVID-19 pandemic and a 2-year civil war that ended only in November 2022. It had been supposed to make the payment on December 11th, but it technically had up to until Tuesday to provide the money due to a 14-day grace period. So there's even a grace period, but they still could not match it. They could not, gain enough euro dollars, right? In order to actually service this debt. And this is why Ethiopia is one of those countries where they don't actually allow you to take out money from the banks in dollars or euros or pounds. It's very difficult. Meaning when even foreigners go to a country like Ethiopia, for them to buy back the dollars or the euros or the pounds is almost impossible because no one will be wanting to sell them. And if they do buy it back, they'll be buying it back at a very expensive amount compared to how much they sold it for. The government of Ethiopia really doesn't allow you as a typical merchant to even take money out of the economy in dollars, pounds, or euros, right? So the reason why they heavily do this is because of situations like this. Because you see, if people take out the foreign currencies, then they won't be able to pay back these bonds, just like what happened recently. According to two sources familiar with the situation, bondholders had not been paid the coupons as of the end
of Friday, December 22, the last international banking working day before the grace period expires, meaning they have defaulted, right? There's going to be serious consequences on their ability to get Eurobonds in the future. Ethiopia government officials did not respond to requests for comments on Friday over the weekend, right? So now what this means is in a few ways, right? African currencies are not useful in the international market. So one way African current countries can actually do well, or rather try to improve themselves, is by getting loans from either International Monetary Fund or Eurobonds from other governments. So in this case, they took out $1 billion in debt, and they had a repayment plan around 6 point something percent interest rate. Now it came time, right, to actually pay off, to service the debt, meaning they pay off some money off, like $33 million, which includes the interest rate, so that the investors can actually start making money back that they gave away, right? That's how these countries and these investors make money. Think about it, right? You, instead of leaving your money in the bank, you're going to get maybe 1% interest rate, maybe less, right? 0.5% interest rate. What happens is you can give your money to a government as a bond. So you go to your government and you say, hey, listen, I'm going to give you $10,000, right? You will offer me 5 or 6% interest rate on this. That means your money, you'll be paid back on some quarterly, or maybe a third of the year, etc., with that interest rate, right? So it's much higher interest rate than just leaving your money in a savings bank account. So it works well for the person that gave the money to create the bond, and then it also helps the country that's receiving the loan, because now they're able to have euro dollars, right? And euro dollars are just simply foreign currencies such as dollars, euros, pounds that are accepted in international trade. But usually dollars are the ones that is exchanged the most in these euro dollars, in euro bonds, right? Euro bonds have nothing to do with Europe, and euro dollars have really nothing to do with euro either. It is mostly the dollar system, but it also depends on the country who's issuing it and how much they're issuing, etc. So what that means is this, right? Ethiopia will have to start selling its businesses. It's only recently that Ethiopia has even decided to allow another country to have a stake in its telecommunication business. They sold a banking license, right, to Safaricom. I do believe it was over $1 billion, right, or so, something like that. So that was actually another way that Ethiopia was able to gain liquid cash. I don't know what they did with that money, and I don't know if that money was paid in full or is being paid in parts. But basically, there is one more company that does operate in Ethiopia that is not the Ethio Telecommunications. Now, this is kind of one of those things that are interesting, right? Ethiopia is more still as a what we call communist, or not really communist, socialist country, that the government actually owns everything. Now, a lot of Africans and Pan-Africans will tell you this is a good thing. And to an extent, it can be a good thing, can be. But it's not necessarily a good thing just because of that fact. Because if you don't open up your economy, what that means is you will not be getting as much foreign direct injection into your country. You want to open up businesses to foreigners, because foreigners will bring money with them, and they will bring foreign currency with them. They will bring the money that you want in order to pay back the debts that you have taken on from countries like, from things like IMF or these Eurobonds. So Ethiopia has been forced to actually open up because they actually defaulted before on another loan, right? The IMF loan, and the IMF told them, you have to open up your economy because you didn't pay back the money on time. You have to start allowing foreign companies to come. Safaricom, the company from Kenya, which is also part of Vodafone and Vodacom, industries, is allowed to now operate there as a competitor. That is how, that's how countries survive in a geopolitical situation. We're no longer in time whereby you just are a country and you exist by yourself and you don't really require other countries to survive. No, in the modern era, you do actually need other countries to survive in there. Now, what's the future for Ethiopia, right? It's not the end, right, for Ethiopia, of course. However, this will definitely incredibly hinder their ability to get loans in the future. So I want to share another another article. So we're going to read through it a little bit, trying to get a little bit more specifics on this bond, what it entailed, and what are some of the consequences because of the defaulting. And of course, not all countries get such a high interest rate, right? You know, if you notice, African countries for a 10-year bond or 10-year loan repayment, they're going to get like 6 point something percent interest rate. America, if they're trying to get money through bonds, they're not going to get an interest rate that high because people trust the American government. American government does not default, meaning they will pay you back, especially since they can just print the money and pay you back anyways, right? Because and this is where people say that it's unfair for African nations, right? The United Kingdom can actually print more pounds and do some crazy, weird strategic thing where they move money around and help service the debt that way. They can do that, right? European Union or countries within European Union can also do something similar, print euros, and then start to find interesting ways to redistribute, buy certain things, liquidate, and sell certain properties quickly to service their debt. African countries can't do that, right? African countries, if they just print their currency is not tradable in the international market, meaning they actually have to earn the dollars and the euros and the pounds or whichever currencies that they take the debt in. They have to earn it, and that's the main difference. So you could say that it is a system designed to keep Africans behind. So anyway, let's read this article here. Ethiopia set to make an unnecessary and unfortunate default on Euro bond repayment. Some ADM also. It's written by a Nigerian writer over there, right? So the country's finance minister is looking to restructure its Eurobond following recent success with restructuring the terms of bilateral debt. Okay, let's go ahead, right? And read this. Ethiopia has indicated to its bond holders that it will be unable to make a $33 million repayment on a $1 billion Eurobond. So they told them straight, listen, we know you're looking forward to this 33 million. You have investors to pay back, and with interest, of course. I believe the interest is over 6%, but we'll be specific once we get to that point. But they told them we're not going to be able to repay it, and they already, missed the payment schedule date. That means whoever they took this loan from has to pay its investors from a different pot of cash, right? And then hopefully Ethiopia will pay it back at some point in the future so that they can actually still service it. Efforts to renegotiate the bond terms before the December 11th deadline for the coupon payment have fallen through. Yeah, today is the 29th, right? And they did not pay it on time. Now, unless the country successfully restructures its debt in time, and they won't do that. So what does restructuring debt mean? And one way restructuring debt means is actually by taking the debt, taking on new debts, either from IMF, from China, or from other countries or banks, taking on that debt and then using that debt to pay off this debt. Right? So let me just be really clear here. What's happening within these Eurobonds and debts and bonds in general is that most African countries can't actually pay off the bonds or the loans using the proceeds of the growth in economy. So let's say you take on this 1 billion, you're Ethiopia, you've taken on a $1 billion Eurobond at, let me see the interest rate, that specific interest rate. So that, okay, so let's say you took it at 6.625% interest rate, okay? So you've taken a Eurobond. You've taken $1 billion from someone, and your interest rate is 6.625%. What that means is, right, there's ways you can actually pay this back easier. If your economy grows by that much every year, you might be able to actually service it by just moving money around, especially if your exports grow. The reason why if your exports grow is because if you're producing some kind of product, perhaps Ethiopia's got limestone, Ethiopia has coffee, it's got tea as well, and other things. Perhaps they have land that they're leasing to Saudi Arabia or India to grow food, etc. You're exporting a service to another country. When you're exporting, and let's say your export grows by that same amount, right, 6.625%, and you've exported over $1 billion worth of product extra. Right? This is extra, guys. We're not talking about whatever you did last year. No, you need to realistically be able to create a value of the same amount plus that interest rate in order for you to actually now start being able to pay off this loan within the time period. But again, you don't need to have grown your exports by, let's say, 1.625 billion dollars. No, in 1 year. No, you don't need to do that. What you need to do is you need to grow it by 6% of that 1 billion every year, and then the money that you've taken, you've invested, now starts to obviously in that 5 or 10 years produce that $1 billion back. That's all you have to do, right? Every year you just need to be able to service that interest rate. So in this case, if you've taken on $1 billion, right, 6% of $1 billion, what's that? 66? Is it $6 million? I can't really do maths, right? 100 million is like 10%, right? So it'll be like I guess 6 million. So you've taken on I believe it'll be like 6 million, right? That's 6%. No, I really can't do math, guys. I'm failing out here. No, it will be 60 million, right? $60 million will be 6%. So every year, where that $1 billion you took went into, whether it's exports, right? Maybe you invested it into a coffee company, right? Maybe you invested it into a shoe company. Maybe you invested it in some other industry or infrastructure, and it has to have been making 6.625% every single year of extra profit that you can go and now start servicing your debt. Now, the issue with African countries in general, they don't usually reinvest all of that money into the right places. What they do is they actually take the money. So they take that $1 billion, right? And remember, they have to pay that $66 million every year, right? Or whatever it is, quarterly, whatever they've decided on the contract. African countries will take that money. The money will be embezzled by some politicians, put in some foreign offshore account somewhere, and stolen, and that money never gets to see the light of day. Sometimes that money goes into paying governments. Yeah, 66 million. Thanks, Crenshaw. Right. Sometimes that money goes into paying government officials. We're talking about low-level government office workers are being paid using $1 billion from a foreign country. So instead of even investing it, because again, at the end of the day, this is basic business, right? This is how business grows, right? You take on a loan, you take that loan, you invest it in something that you know you're guaranteed to produce more money with that investment in the future. Sometimes African governments do also something else which is silly. They take it and they improve on infrastructure. Now, improving infrastructure is good for a general long-term thing, right? You're building roads, you're building new buildings, etc. That's not a bad thing, but here's the issue. If there is a deadline on the times of the repayments, you need to find another money to be able to build those things, infrastructure, because unless that infrastructure is returning the money back in the denominated currency, you are fucked, you're screwed. And that's part of the problem, right? African countries will take it, they'll start building nice offices, they'll spend it on the foreign officials going into the nice business class. They'll spend it on things that don't return money. Now, Ethiopia does have, Ethiopian Airlines, which is a way for them to get Eurodollars, right? That's why countries have airlines, right? It allows them, African countries, allows them to get Eurodollars, right? Because you have flight passengers from America, from Europe, from all around the world who will be paying in their currencies to your country's airline. So yes, in a way, you could kind of say the Ethiopian Airlines is almost like a way for them to launder the dirty African money and get some nice clean dollars, euros, and pounds. However, as I mentioned before, Africans don't generally reinvest this money appropriately. So what happens is they pay off their salaries to government workers, which really is the most useless way of using this money. Because this is, again, foreign currencies. If they really wanted, they could just print. And here's what I keep saying with African countries. African countries don't know how to play the game of debt servicing and restructuring correctly. You can actually pay salary, right, to government workers by just printing money, right? It's not going to affect your economy that much because you don't have that many government workers. That's one. And two, these people will be spending that money for the most part within the country. Literally, they'll be spending the money within the country, doing what? Mostly services or food, right? Most of that money is not going to be going to electronics, which have some kind of Eurodollar debt to pay back. It's going to be spent within the country on services and on food. So the inflation won't even increase that much by you just printing money and paying off government workers using that money, right? Using dollars, right? It's the dumbest way to do that. African governments still don't seem to understand this. So generally, what happens is African governments, because they don't invest that $1 billion in a project that will actually yield productivity, that money goes to waste, right? That money can't even service itself, right? So what that means is they have to take on another Eurobond. So really, African countries are on the business of investing money in one currency, taking one Eurobond, then they take another Eurobond to pay off the debt on the other Eurobond. So they're in a systematic, very toxic debt repayment plan, and that obviously keeps them at bondages. So every time you guys are talking about, Africans, nations should just stop relying on the white man. You're gonna be strong, man. No, they can't be strong, right? They're barely paying back these debts. And even these countries refuse to give them more bonds, they can't even industrialize, right? If I was, let's say, in the Kenya's Ministry of Trade or some relevant ministry that allowed me to actually have access to a lot of this money will go into an industry, right? This is how countries like Norway have the ability to see the future and also ability to suffer until the future comes a reality. Tesla is a 20-year-old company. It's only now that it's skyrocketed in value because it's now able to produce cars. They got the batteries and they have a whole market economy, and the world's legislation on clean vehicles and clean ways of engines has actually favored in them. They were able to see the future. They invested in it. They bought other car companies, utilized their propriety, right? The intellectual property, and then they were able to go and enhance on that. And now they're a successful American motor company, just like GM Motors, etc., right? So an African country should not be taking this $1 billion just to go back and reservice another debt, or take this $1 billion to pay off some dusty employment workers. They need to be thinking, okay, so I do kind of need to learn mining. Mining seems to be at the pivotal center of every technology. We live in the age of technology, right? These are all axioms, right? We live in the age of technology. We know and can see the future. Tech is paramount. If that's the case, we know that African countries don't actually have mining companies that are able to, either through skill, knowledge, information, as well as actual physical, let's say, machines to go and mine in the correct way. They don't understand modern mining at all. I'll invest that $1 billion by either procuring another company that mines. Because here's the thing, right? You can actually just buy another company. Take a risk, right? Go buy a company or go create a startup, with people that are from that company, and then go start doing it. Start going around there and drilling, right? I just don't get why Africans are stuck in this system whereby it doesn't really favor them. Well, good morning, Uncle Duale. Hopefully you're doing well. Crenshaw Grinder says, what about being a civil war causing damage to the economy? So Crenshaw Grinder, great question. When it comes to Eurobonds, right, on just bonds in general, foreign bonds, Eurobonds, and they are slightly different, but there's really no need for me to clarify the difference. It's a difference that really doesn't make a difference for this conversation. So stipulated in how bonds work, they don't give a shit about your internal issues. Bonds, okay, so let me give an example, right? When Chinese gives you loans, right, there's usually collateral somehow. Let's say Chinese built a bridge for you, or they built a train or something. If you don't pay back on time, China will take control of the running of those businesses, and then take their cut back slowly and repay themselves however they can, right? So China will usually give you loans with collateral. It depends on the contract, but that's how, of course, they usually do it. However, Eurobonds coming from mostly European countries, Japan and America, they don't take collateral, meaning they're giving it to you because they trust that you are a sovereign nation with a good record of paying back its loans, and you've never really defaulted. So therefore, they trust that. So it's really a trust-based thing. They typically only give it to governments and sometimes very large corporations, perhaps Coca-Cola or something that's so entrenched in a lot of different countries and businesses can be given such a loan, right? They give it to only trusted entities. Governments are an example. So meaning, even if you have civil war or something, they don't care about it. This is not a loan from International Monetary Fund. That's a very different thing. That one is more of a, of a loan because everybody is part of the world, and it's coming from a slightly different perspective there. So I just wanted to kind of clear that up. Okay, Uncle Dwale says printing money causes inflation. That's not true. It depends how you do it. Crenshaw says the government can only do so much. The American economy is strong because of small businesses. Well, Crenshaw Grinder, yeah, but American government is very different, right? American government can just print dollars, right, and then pay back the debts in dollars if they wanted to. America is a very different beast, right? Everybody, they just think through what you just said, Crenshaw Grinder, right? America doesn't need to even have good fiscal policies. America can and does frequently just print loads of money and start paying off things in around the world using that money that they've printed. America is actually, think of it this way, right? The whole world relies on dollars as the means of exchange across the whole planet. If that's the case, even if America printed $1 billion to pay off a debt, that $1 billion in the trillions and trillions of dollars in the world circulating, that won't matter. But if Kenya, or rather Ethiopia, starts printing birr, their dusty currency, all that will do is cause inflation if they don't manage it correctly, because nobody wants the birr. Let's be honest, right? And also, unless there's always caveats. Unless Ethiopia opens up its business, someone would want the birr, right? So let me give you context here, right? Ethiopia can print the birr as a way to sell a service or a product. If, for example, I'll give you an example, right? Recently, Safaricom, let me see how much Safaricom buys banking license in Ethiopia for how much. So this is okay. Let me. Okay. So I don't know how much they paid in total for what Safaricom paid in total, but just for M-Pesa is a monetary exchange, send money, mobile money division of the Safaricom company, right? So Ethiopia eyes 150 million fee for Safaricom M-Pesa entry. So Kenya, or rather Safaricom's subsidiary company called M-Pesa, had to pay $150 million to Ethiopia in order for them to operate as a bank and gain their banking license in Ethiopia. Right? That's just for the M-Pesa. However, if you look at the total money that was actually given to them for the full banking license, it was actually $850 million. So M-Pesa, that money that M-Pesa is paying there is only a small part of the greater $850 million just to enter the company, meaning it really costs around $1 billion for you to get a banking license in another country. So one way that Ethiopia can, for example, make quick cash is through things like this, right? They just print $1 billion worth of birr, right? That they use that within the country's economy, right? And then they sell a service, right? In this case, a banking license, right? This is an abstract, piece of thing that allows another country business to run within your economy. One man says, ban Canadian Frenchies exploiting Africa. Yeah, and of course I know that this is a quite heavy sort of topic. Nobody wants to know about how Eurobonds work. Africans would rather come in screaming and shouting at each other. The West is doing this and the West is doing that, not really understanding how these systems work, and that actually most of the time we are the ones who default by corruption, us not investing our monies the correct way, and all the likes, sort of situation. So Crenshaw says, so you're saying they need foreign investment? They need it. Yeah, they need it. Without foreign investment, look, Kenya. Why do you think Kenya generate? Because Kenya, everybody's, oh, Kenya has so much foreign debt, this and that, and I kept saying it doesn't really matter how much debt you have, as long as your economy grows enough to actually service that interest rate. That's it. That's all that matters. That's how debt is being paid back. Just take the money, invest it, make sure that it's creating a growth in your economy. And if the economy is growing, especially the export sectors of your economy, like tea, coffee, in Kenya's example, then you're going to be getting more euro dollars back into your nation, right? Through business. If you do that, then you can service your debt. That's all that matters. Or sure, you can take another debt to service that debt, as long as you service that debt, right? So yeah, as long as you grow your economy, you have no issues, right? But a country like Ethiopia is very closed economy. The government wants to take control of every sector, and they don't really want to open it up to other people. So when you have a country like that, it is very difficult for them to grow because they don't even let foreign companies operate in the country that easily. It's very difficult. The government want to control everything. I mean, they come from socialism, right? There's a reason why every time they keep projecting Ethiopia economy is growing so fast, but no one's really seeing uh, the fruits of their so-called growth is because of issues like this. They are very insular nation, as I mentioned before, right? Me and Ike, we have employees that work for us in various amounts in Ethiopia as engineers, and when we pay them, right? Um, if we pay them directly, they're not going to be able to keep their money in dollars, right? The government, of course, will take the dollar money and give them a bid, right? And they will not be able to then take that bid and start trading outside. Buying things in Ethiopia from Amazon or abroad is very difficult because the banks don't want to give you the dollars or the pounds or the euros to do it. In Kenya, I can just go, let's assume I have a Kenyan bank account. I can just go and purchase products all over Amazon, online, because there's enough circulated dollars and pounds and euros within the Kenyan central bank that they know they'll get the money back at some point, because that's how trade occurs. You go China, you take some dollars, you buy products there, you bring it back, people buy it. You maybe export some other stuff. So there's enough of a business happening in a country like Kenya that they can actually allow you to just purchase almost anything online using your shillings, because the bank will then obviously pay those vendors in dollars, euros, or pounds. But Ethiopia, you can't do that, right? You can't. It doesn't work. You go there and you can't even open up a PayPal account so easily, right? So there is no exchange going on. Ethiopia is a one-way euro dollar exchange. Only comes in, it doesn't leave the country. That's why they have such a large black market. For example, if I go to Mexico in Addis Ababa, I can get so much higher. Let's say right now, $1 is 55 bit. If I go to Mexico, I can get $1 for 100 and even 10 to 120 bill, double the amount. Because in the black market, they understand if they just hold on the foreign currencies in the future, especially given the inflation of the bid, right? Typical African currencies always go through some kind of inflation. They will be making a lot more money by holding the dollars, even if they gave you double amount of the bid. So you think you're making a lot in the black market, but actually the black market here is making money and the banks are making even more money. So in Ethiopia, you can't even exchange your money in the banks, right? Because you're going to get peanuts for your money's worth when you can exchange it in the black markets, etc. Over there, yeah. But generally, this is why countries like Ghana have defaulted. The inflation rate went off the roof by over 30%, right? Within the 2023, etc. And this is not going to go down because now by defaulting means that nobody else wants to give you another loan. And if they do give you a loan, the interest rate is going to be so high. So it's one of those catch-22 situations, right? Either they won't give you a loan, which some people won't. They'll just blacklist you because you've defaulted on an agreed recurring repayment plan. And then the ones who will give you a loan will give you a loan at a very hyperinflated interest rate. If America takes a Eurobonds, right, from UK or Germany or Japan or China or anyone, they're not going to be paying 6.625% on a maturation of a bond. they're not going to pay that much, right? They're going to pay much less because they're trustworthy, right? The United States government is a trustworthy source. They always pay their debts. And the reason why, because they can just print it, right? But it's more than that, right? They've actually have got a strong economy. They have, no matter how dusty Americans think the American leaders are, they're much better than other people. But yeah, let me read more details here on this whole Eurobond situation. Ethiopia's finance minister announced last Friday that it would be unable to meet their repayment targets due to its depleted foreign exchange reserves, right? Just as I was saying, they don't have it. And because they don't even allow other foreign current companies to operate, it's very difficult for them to make quick cash. They could always sell things, right? As I mentioned, they sold a banking license to Vodafone or Safaricom, right? It's the same company. At least the owners are, 30% shareholders of Vodafone and Safaricom. $850 million, right? That's easy money just by allowing a foreign banking entity to operate within your country, as well as operations for telecommunications. Per reports, the country had attempted last-minute discussions with a group of its bondholders last Friday to review the terms of the 1 billion Eurobond. So they're out here begging, right? And here's why I always find kind of very disgraceful African countries, right? I get it, right? First of all, this whole COVID thing, I don't even want to talk about that, right? That was their fault for however they dealt with that, right? African countries don't want to take responsibility, right? You defaulted because you didn't spend the money doing the things that you were supposed to do to do with, right? That's simple as that, right? You did not invest that $1 billion appropriately. So now you're trying to go and strong arm your bondholders by telling them, oh, please, reduce the repayments. We don't want to, we can't afford it. No, this is why, right? President Ruto has been going around having discussions at United Nations and all these meetings for a so-called fairer interest rate for third world or, developing nations. But when you look at the reality, the reason why the interest rate is so high for so-called developing nations is because they don't pay the money back on time. Simple as that. It's a simple economics. There's no racism. Yeah, I get it, right? There is context, and the context is, look, European countries can do some crazy money printing, restructure it because their money is actually utilized in trade globally. They can do some crazy liquidation of assets, etc. Right? However, so that happens. I get it, right? European countries have an advantage because their currencies are actually traded globally. The euro, the pound, the yen, and the dollar. These are the most traded currencies around the world. So yeah, I get it. They have an advantage. But regardless, you African countries don't pay back the loans that you take from these countries. And this is a simple example. So let's go ahead, right? So they've defaulted, right? Meaning they will not be getting another loan from the same bondholders. And the ones who do give them the bond, do you think they're going to give it to them at the same rate of 6.625%? No. Next time, if Ethiopia gets any more bonds, this number is going to be 8%, or this number is going to be 9%. They're not going to get a Eurobond at this interest rates ever again after defaulting on the payments. This is a situation, right? And also shout out to Flexed Up. It is a morning hour show, so we won't even get anyone here anyways. But shout out Flexed Up. Thank you very much for the $5. More on this. Yeah, so Ethiopia has defaulted. Anyway, let's continue reading this article. Yep. Flexed Up. As I was saying earlier, right? If Ethiopia took that $1 billion bond, they should not have been using it. Oh, shut up, man. Lapierre is also out here proving himself king. Okay, shout out to you, Benoit. Great stream yesterday, by the way. The second stream was great. We actually went really deep into culture and the future and Afro-positivism. So, yeah, great. And shout out to you. Thank you guys for supporting this show and being the sponsors of this. I know it's a little bit dense, what I'm saying here. A lot of people won't understand it. Africans would rather just argue and say, hey, the Africa, just take the debt. They don't know how it works, what it means, and everything. So I'm trying to at least give us a class so that we all on the same page on how debts work, how actually and why African countries are stuck and that they have to take on things like LGBT. This is why, because you default on a loan. Now they put new conditions, right? It's called restructuring when it comes to IMF, International Monetary Fund. If they save you from defaulting, because sometimes, let's say you do this, right? You've taken $1 billion with a 6.625% interest rate from Germany. Let's say this bond came from Germany. I don't know. It doesn't say who it came from, right? Germany will expect you to pay that $33 million by the 8th of December. You defaulted. So you go to IMF and you say, International Monetary Fund, please, because of COVID and these other issues, we could not pay off the debt and we've defaulted. But we need to pay it off now before they blacklist us and we are unable to get future bonds, or at least not at the same interest rate. So IMF will tell you, okay, so we want you to go and restructure the way you're doing business. Right now, Ethiopia is very insular, as I mentioned. You cannot actually send foreign currencies outside of Ethiopia. That's a fact. Unless you are one of these agents, like a specialized merchant, right? You can get a merchant license and figure out how to do it. You have to prove to the government how you're going to get the euro dollars back into the nation. But a typical Ethiopian cannot just go into the bank, convert their bid into a dollar. It doesn't happen. It won't do it. The only place you can do it is at the black market. And at the black market, you're going to get rates that are so exuberant that unless you have so much money, you can't do it. So let me give the context here of how the black market works in Ethiopia and how the government actually has this policy whereby foreign exchange only comes into Ethiopia and doesn't leave. So right now, let's assume, but I believe I'm correct, right? $1 is around 55 to 60 bid, according to the banks in Ethiopia. What that means is that if you go to a bank and you're an Ethiopian or you're a passport bro, right? You want to exchange your dollars or your pounds or euros, whatever it is. Let's say pounds, euros. You go there with you go there with $1, right? For every dollar, you're going to get 55 or 60 bid. Great. If you go to the black market, you're going to get, for every dollar, 120 bid. And you're wondering to yourself, well, why would the black market give me double what the bank is giving me? And there's good reasons, right? There's one reason is, and this is not the only reason, but this is one reason, the inflation. African currencies across time always lose value due to inflation, right? Because they're printing more money and whatever, just inflation, right? It's to do with printing money and the supply availability and the cost and all of that stuff, right? So you already know that there's going to be inflation. Great, but that's not enough to make it that there's such a black market with 100% excess money that they're giving you. That doesn't make sense, right? That doesn't complete the picture. Now, the second half of why the black market is, so if you go to Ethiopia, go to Addis, you go to Mexico, there's black markets there. I'm not telling you to do anything, right? I don't want you to go into black markets, right? I'm just explaining how money works. You go there and you exchange your $1 for 120 birr. And you're wondering, why are they giving me so much money? Are they not going to lose even long term, taking into account inflation rate? It's not enough to cover that. I'll tell you why. Because Ethiopia's fiscal policies states that, or rather in practice, forget what they state, in practice, you as an Ethiopian cannot even open a foreign bank. In Kenya, you can just go to Family Bank. You can go, and Kenya actually is a country with the most banks in all of Africa, over 45 banks. Nigeria doesn't even come close. There's only like 18 banks, right? Separate banks. So you go to, in Ethiopia, you can't just go around opening a foreign currency bank. They're not going to let you unless, again, you're a specialized merchant. So if you want and you need these dollars, there's only a few ways you can do it. Now, you can get it from the government because you say, I'm a student, I'm going to study my PhD in Germany. So they will actually give you the euro dollars because they need it, right? Germany's not going to accept your bid, right? So there's exceptions, right? But as a general Ethiopian, or let's say you are a corrupt politician and you want to get the money out of the country, how do you get it out? Simple. You now go back to the same black market and now you buy the euro dollars with 200%. So it's a whole economy, as I explained already, right? I already said before, $1 in Ethiopia will give you 55 birr. If you go to the black market, that's through the banks. If you go to the black market, you're going to get 120 birr. Now, if you want to go and regain that money back quickly, and you are a corrupt politician or someone who just really needs quick euro dollars out, you go back to the same black market. Now, you give them 240, bid for that $1. That's how the black market exists in countries, right? Especially African countries, and that's actually how this situation occurs. And even the black market sells those euro dollars to the government as well. It's a whole market economy that exists, and now this is why. But yeah, guys, if you do want to call in, you want to join the discussion, you have questions, you have additions, you have suggestions of how African countries can stop being on this debt crisis where you're just paying, you're getting loans and then the loans are being defaulted because of bad spending. You don't know how to actually move the money around the correct way. Yeah, join the discussion. Click the link. I've done pretty heavy analysis on how this stuff works. We've gone through what is a Eurobond, right? A Eurobond is a bond, and what is a bond, anyways, right? In simple terms, I'm America, right? I need money to do my services, right? Maybe I want to pay government workers. Who knows? I have an infrastructure project. I don't have the liquid cash yet because America makes money to pay off its government things through income tax, right? As well as other taxes based on trade. So they have a budget, right? The budget's not enough. You have a new project that you want. Maybe you want to go and build the train, a fast railway from San Diego to, I don't know, all the way to New York or something. You are going to borrow money from your citizens, right? Or foreigners. That's why it's called a Eurobond, right? You're going to borrow the money by getting a bond from another country or your own citizens. So your citizens will give you the money, right? You put up the bond, you say, in 5 years' time, we'll give you 6%. Maturation of the bond will be 6%. And of course, there's a common repayment, they'll be paying back every quarter or whatever it states on the contract, right? That's what a bond is. So African countries, because they have issues, right? They need money, right? Because no one's going to take a Kenyan shilling abroad. They need euros, or maybe they need pounds, or maybe they need dollars. But dollars is the most sought out currency for obvious reasons. They need dollars. So the African country goes and searches for bonds that have been posted. There's different interest rates depending on the country, right? If you're a dusty African country that you don't ever pay back the money, you're going to have the higher interest rate, right? You take it on. That's more or less what a bond is, and that's how and why African countries are where they are. We don't know how to pay back these bonds. We go help, cry to IMF, International Monetary Fund, and say, hey, please help us pay off this debt because we're going to default. And if you default, they'll give us more interest rate in the future. IMF says, okay, we'll help you pay it off. You pay us. You now take a loan from us, the IMF, at a lower interest rate because we begged them really nicely. And then they will tell us, but you have to restructure your economy. And this has already happened to Ethiopia, by the way. Ethiopia defaulted before on an IMF loan, and the IMF told them, that's fine, but you're going to have to open up your economy. So far, all they've done is opened up is telecommunications. Ethiopia is a very insular, very socialist economy. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it has consequences. They've had to actually agree to restructuring the way that they run their economies in order for them to actually still operate. So, we've gone over it, what bonds are, what's actually happening, why Ethiopia has defaulted. And, you niggas really hate on Kenya. We're like, oh, Kenya has so much high debt. It's irrelevant how much debt you have if your economy can sustain it and service it. And that's what I wanted to say. But yeah, shout out to, we got the sponsors, Benoit, as well as Flexed Up. We got panelists. We got Duran. Duran, what's good, brother? Don't know where you want to come in.
What's up, Kaiser? It's a good point you made about the difference between Kenya and Ethiopia when it comes to their markets. This is one of the reasons why you see a lot of Somalis being successful in Kenya,
investing in Kenya. Yeah,
it's not just because we're in both countries. So the reason is not because we're not trying. The reason is that the economy is very closed off. It's not as accessible as in Kenya, which is very the difference is alarming. But I think they joined BRICS. Didn't they join BRICS? I don't know how that is going to affect them. But this loan default is crazy. It's it's going to affect the way the dam how they're going to make money off the dam now. It's going to affect. They only have like one way they get stuff in the country, which is through one built train rack that runs to Djibouti, which they spend a lot of money just to get stuff in the country just through that way. A lot of things that Ethiopia has that they're gonna have to sort out. It's crazy. Yeah, and then this just happened with the loan default of loan, which is gonna cause them another 15 years of just wasted economic.
It's crazy.
Economy is going to be wasted for another 10 years. Down the drain.
Yeah, I mean, this
whole
is
region is a mess, man. And then you got Eritrea, just a joke. Somalia just coming out of the loan, but they're gonna have to do some. They let us off with the debt, but there's gonna be caveats to that. So I don't know how that's gonna work out. The whole region is a joke, man. Joke, absolute joke.
Yep. Yep. But Ajuran, I wanted to go back on a point that you made about why, because if you notice, Somalis in Ogaden or Addis are nowhere as successful as the ones in Kenya, because Kenya is, I would say this is, okay, the reason why Kenya actually outperformed Tanzania initially and also Ethiopia, because Ethiopia's economy was good at one point, is because of its policies, right? Because Africans always like to say, oh, Kenya's booty clapping and stuff. Well, yes, but there's reasons for it. You can't just close your economy to outsiders, because then you won't get foreign investors. Somali people, for example, know, okay, if I invest in Kenya, I'm going to get my money back. Like, it's not just going to be a situation where my money's Kenyan shillings. They know they can actually get the money back in dollars. They can reinvest back at home in Somalia or back at home in the UK or America. There's just ways that economy.
Yeah, that's one of the major issues. Yeah. Yeah, it's a closed economy. Very hard to get the money in and very hard to get the money out and stuff like that. Causes a lot.
Yeah.
Because the money comes from diaspora.
But, why is that?
Because Ethiopia is a closed economy.
No, I'm talking about. I didn't really even want to contribute. I just wanted to, add to the numbers. But if you're saying that Somalia, Eritrea, those sort of spaces, that they're closed off economies, which broadly, my understanding as well. I don't really know the intricacies of the politics there, but I've always seen them as closed off economies. But why is that? Why is it that economic space is not productive?
Great point. Okay. So, hang on. You asked two questions. Why are they closed, or why are they closed and also not productive? Which question would you want?
Yeah, one is a consequence of the other, isn't it? They're a closed economy, then consequently they are not productive. But I'm not aware that there are any significant resources or anything to base an economy on in Somalia, Eritrea, places like that. But that might well be down to my.
Okay, so let's use Ethiopia. Let's use Ethiopia, because Ethiopia, it doesn't really have as much sanctions and embargoes as Somalia or Eritrea. So in Ethiopia's case, this is what the government thinks, right? Ethiopia wants to go back into the ancient Abyssinian kingdom style of ruling. The government rules everything. It's an autocratic government. They believe in going back to be similar to what Saudi government is, where they have so much control over everything. Although Saudi opens up for foreign investors, Ethiopia wants to just kind of recreate the great Habesha Renaissance.
Yes, centralized government. Basically, they want everything to be streamlined into the government.
So I'm assuming that there's sorry, Ajuran. I'm assuming that there's some sort of level of education in Ethiopia, and I'm assuming that they understand that there's a world outside the shores of their country. So if they want to be this sort of isolationist sort of experimentation, how are they then looking to the world to profit of it?
Wait, one man, can you repeat that question? I think you went over my small Kenyan brain.
No, sorry. I was saying that I'm sure there's a level of education in and intelligence in Ethiopia,
In Addis, yes, in Addis Ababa,
in places like that. And then if you are saying they want to time portal to some back in time authoritarianism, which is at odds, at variance with contemporaneous understanding, then how are they looking to profit and engage with the rest of the world? So if they want to be this, for want of a better phraseology, Ethiopian supremacy, whatever it is that they are bent on, then how are they looking to, to dollarize that in order for that then to work?
Ooh, okay, that's a good question. So I'll give what they think is going to help, even though I don't think it's going to work. So they have the Ethiopian Airlines. They own that company 100%. They've also bought, I believe, is it Zambia? They've bought some other African airline as well, which they own in percentage shareholding stake. So Ethiopia wants to use something like the airline to get Eurodollars back. So of course, you one man, if you use Ethiopian Airlines, you pay them in your pounds, they get Eurodollars. Ajuran pays it in pounds, I pay in dollars. For every time I use their airline, they get back the Eurodollars, right? So that's one way that instead of exporting things traditionally like coffee and tea, they can also get it from the airline. It's a very good way to get a lot of money really quickly. And obviously they can leverage the fact that they don't have to pay the Ethiopian airline workers as much as other airlines would. So they can actually maximize on profit because they're paying them African standards using African currencies, but they're actually earning in Eurodollars. So that's one way that they want to do. So they want to maintain control. And they also feel like long term, if the government, remember, these are all government institutions. Government owns it. It's not privatized. So long term, they feel like they're going to now be able to leverage that and succeed long term. So I think it's not a good strategy because you do need a mid-term ability to make money and actually invest in other things. They also have the Great Renaissance Dam. You know what? I believe that they actually took this $1 billion here and they probably put it into the Great Renaissance Dam. Let's be honest. I don't even think that Ethiopia is as corrupt as other countries. So another thing that they're hoping with the Great Renaissance Dam is now they're going to because most Ethiopians don't have access to electricity, right? Ethiopia is a very poor country, very, very poor, right? They don't have access to electricity. So they wanted to invest in that Great Renaissance Dam. They claim they got most of the money from bonds that they sold to their diasporans and other people that had dollars in order to build that project. That's what they claim, but I believe they probably use also this money here. That's why they're defaulting, right? Because they're not making profit yet on the Renaissance Dam. So their plan is they build the Great Renaissance Dam. They start selling electricity to countries like Kenya, which they already are doing actually, and their neighbors, so that they can now get the Eurodollars back in the system. So they want just to maintain control. The only project that I know is big that they've done, and this is unprecedented, they've never done this before, is selling a banking license to a Vodafone subsidiary company, which is called Safaricom, right? Vodafone owns like 30%. And of course, we know who's financing, who actually paid for that banking license. It's not Safaricom, it's Vodafone, who probably, gave them that $850 million to get the telecommunications and banking license. So that's another way that they've been forced by the IMF to do. Ethiopia did not want to open up its telecommunications or banking to other banks and other telecommunication services. So to answer your last question, I don't think it's going to work because you see, when you have really strong rules and laws on trading, look, why are Somalis and Kikuyus and Kisis so successful in Kenya? These three tribes in business, they can go to any Kenyan bank and ask, okay, I have 20,000 shillings. Give me the equivalent in pounds or euros or whichever currency they're buying the product from China or other countries that they buy it from. They go, they get it, they go buy the product, they sell it. Maybe they create a business. Maybe they create, they go buy machines, they agriculture, they export it. It's really easy. There's liquidity in Kenyan market, right? Money moves around. Ethiopians are afraid that if you open up the market, all the foreign reserve currency is going to leave. So I'll give you an example, right? In Kenya, Kenya claims they have like 20 or 16 billion dollars in reserves. Nigeria claims it has maybe 3 times that because it's 3 times economy. That money is really not in reserve, right? That money is in circulation, doing something, right? In Kenya, Somalis, Kikuyus, and Kisis, they're using it to purchase products on abroad, and then they're selling it, or they're, purchasing machines abroad, and then they're industrializing. That's what the Indians are doing, in key industries like, I don't know, like chemicals and making stuff like that. Ethiopia doesn't do that, right? In Ethiopia, the foreign exchange really is what the money that the government has to do stuff with. It's not in circulation. So to answer your question, one man, they're afraid that if they open it up, all the money will leave Ethiopia and Ethiopia will collapse.
Is it not really more a fear of the West? Because I've always had the sense somewhat that in that cusp, Ethiopia, Eritrea, Somalia, those sort of countries, I think there's an intrinsic fear of the West that or maybe more like a control thing that they feel if they liberalize their space, which necessarily they must, for economic activities to take place. But they feel if they liberalize their space, they're not able then to hold on to that authoritarianism, which seems to be the form of governance in those sort of spaces. And as they continue to hold on to those draconian sort of governance template, the world continues to liberalize and converge into one agreed identity and way of functioning. And those sort of countries, they are continuously being left because there are quantum leaps being made now in the times that we live in. And these people want to still continue to live in the past.
One example of what you're saying is, so if you notice, Somalia was finally accepted into East African Community. They applied because they know it's going to benefit them. Like if you're looking at trade, forget the cultural stuff, whether they want Bantus in the country, stealing all the Halimos, that's a whole separate kind of worms, right? But they know that they're going to benefit by being involved in a regional economy whereby they can trade, they can even get go to the bank, get money in Kenyan shillings if they want to invest in. You get the point. They know they'll benefit. Ethiopia showed no interest in joining anything. To them, they really do see them. Ethiopia is like the Nigeria of East Africa minus the productivity of Nigeria. They really do have main character energy. They do believe and feel that they are the beginning and end of all East African relevancy. And I think that's what's holding them back, because if they were far more open, the economy would be doing way better. These guys have 120 million people, or at least 100 million, minimum, right? But I think it's 120 million right now. That economy should be so much bigger than it is.
Hey, is there a thing of some sort of a superiority complex from the especially Ethiopians, because they are an ancient culture? They go deep into biblical times. They would like to imagine that they were never colonized, even though the Italians will tell you differently. So, do you think somewhat the past is holding places like Ethiopia back?
Can you go ahead, Ajuran?
Yeah, I think it's just about their policies, to be honest. I think it's just, look at Kenya. They did like example of the opposite of what's Ethiopia doing. Ethiopia is literally an insular country. There's no other players apart from the government, basically. There's no other big players in the country doing anything. Even just being a local businessman is very hard to get money out, money in. It's very, very insular. It's not really about I don't think it's about his just policies, just horrendous. I think it's just they've been, yeah. I think the last government was okay. When they had the TPLF, was all right. They were doing good when they had TPLF, and then Abiy Ahmed took over, and then he started trying to get everything in control. But
but why do you think that,
like this for a while though?
Why do you think that is though, Ajuran? Why do you think they have all of this restrictive policy positioning, which I'm pretty sure they know hold back their economy? So what do you think the overriding ideology is? What point do you think they're trying to prove? Or what
Partly they started off with the Soviet Union. They were communist kind of country before. After the monarchy was gone, they had to change their identity. They became like a socialist kind of country, and then obviously you know how the Soviets kind of went downhill, and after that they went back to just centralized government because of different governments trying to take over different policies. It's horrendous policies.
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense. But it's kind of interesting. Okay, now what if let's be more abstract, but to be honest, I know I'm talking SHIT, but could people say that they've gone through socialism, they've gone through fake capitalism, that right now maybe they're actually going to discover themselves and find a thing that really works for them. What do you guys think of that? Do you think that that's actually now what's going to happen with a country like Ethiopia? They've been through every stage, right? They've been through the all the different types of Western capitalism. They have their own history. Again, as I mentioned, the Habesha, right? So let's just say there's no such thing as Ethiopia history, right? Habesha, right? It's the Habesha people who have the history there. The other people, it's not really the same thing. They have that great history. They're looking into it, right? It's those Renaissance. I mean, even the dam is called the Great Renaissance Dam, right? There is a main character energy, whatever, coming from that area that they just don't want to let go. And to me, I just think this is it's very unfortunate what's happened here with this. You see, everything I said has predicted it, right? Right now, it says the country is seeking an emergency fund plan from the lender as last resort, the International Monetary Fund. Right? IMF is not where they got that loan from, but now they're begging IMF to, hey, look. First, they want to beg the bondholders and be like, oh, please reduce the interest rate from 6.625 to like 5.5%, and then give us more time. Then now they're begging IMF, man, please just give us some money so we can pay off this, you can save us this debt, and then we will go and adhere to your restructuration program. So be very kind of keen on Ethiopia actually opening up business to foreigners happening very soon, because they will have to, right? IMF, I know what IMF will ask them. Allow foreign companies to operate and make it easy for them to operate and make it easy for them to get Eurodollars back, right? Another thing is a foreign country is not going to invest in Ethiopia unless they can get now the money back in the currency that they deem useful. That's also the other issue, right? And that's also why Ethiopia doesn't allow them to operate, because they would demand that they get the money back in a currency that they can use. I mean, this is why Flutterwave, the Nigerian company, became what is known as a unicorn, like being evaluated over, was it $2 billion or something? Is it a billion, either $1 billion or $2 billion within like a 2-year period of its starting? That's because the problem it was solving is exactly this. If you have a Western or rather foreign company investing in your country, they don't want to go pay back its investors in Naira. It's not going to be useful. They need to pay that back in dollars. So Flutterwave basically communicates, whether it's manual or digitally, it doesn't really matter, with banks, several banks in Africa, so that their money can be moved around. Let's say Coca-Cola has made, I don't know, $300 million profit this year. They need that money in dollars. But someone wants to invest in another currency, maybe Kenyan shilling. So they will sell that. And maybe Kenya needs to invest in Naira, right? Because they are opening up Safaricom in Nigeria. So they move the money around the banks. And that's basically why Flutterwave is evaluated so highly. It's solving a problem of getting foreign currencies out of African nation. There's no way Ethiopia, Flutterwave is going to work in Ethiopia. There's no way Ethiopian government is going to give them access or the license to do that. It says here, according to Bloomberg, the country's finance minister said on Friday that it was not in a position to pay the 33 million coupon because of the nation's fragile external, whatever that means. It just basically means that they're broke. How and why they're broke, it doesn't really matter. And it says it is difficult to move forward until there is an IMF program and a debt sustainability agreement. We should see an agreement around mid next year at the earliest as a result. According to sources citing government data, Ethiopia's external debt was valued at $28 billion at the end of March. That's a lot of money. And remember, that's not in Ethiopian currency. According to Reuters, an unnamed group of bondholders had proposed Ethiopia earlier in the year to extend the maturity of the Eurobond from its 2024. Now, here's the thing. If you extend the maturity, right, of that bond, right, what that means is interest rates are going to increase. No, that's not true. If you extend the maturity of that bond, you obviously, your interest rates will increase. Yes, I was right. And you just don't want to keep increasing your interest rates over there. So the question is, Ghana has defaulted. The economy is in SHIT. Zambia has defaulted. I don't even know if Zambia has an economy, right? Now Ethiopia is a third nation in Africa to default. Everybody thought Kenya was going to default, but it never did. What do you think are solutions to these defaulting? Because this is a catch-22. The more you default, the higher the interest rates you get, and the higher the interest rates you get means the higher you default.
It's a matter of liberalizing the economic space, isn't it? It's all down to economic activities. If you look at although you might well say that there's economic activities in places like Ghana, but then of course embedded in that is corruption as well. There is nothing wrong with borrowing. In fact, borrowing is a necessity of governance and is a good thing as well. But often instances when they borrow this money, just a minuscule percentage of it goes towards anything meaningful. So they borrow to loot and then go and seek debt forgiveness, only then to loop around that cycle again. So it's quite a thing, But the only way to do it is to trade your way out of it. I thought Ghana was the only one that actually surprises me is Ghana, because I'd always thought that there was thinking brains in places like Ghana and places like that. But I'm not especially surprised that a place like Ethiopia would default, because it's an insular society, very closed off. It is not known for anything other than historical backdrops and religious alignment with different sorts of faiths and whatnot. But it's really essentially about ultimately every space has to liberalize, and I'm glad that they're with the IMF now, places like Ethiopia, because of course, like you just rightly said, then there'll be criteria there'll be criteria to the to whatever the loan they're going to get off IMF, and almost guaranteed one of the main marquee for access to loan will be the liberalization of that economic space. Ethiopia should be the biggest economy in East Africa, because it's the most attractive, it's the sexiest country in that space. It has the deepest history. I mean, in terms of, the allure, everybody knows Ethiopia.
Okay.
It has a long historical space in global consciousness. Even tourism alone is sufficient enough to drive that economy in abundance. So if they're with the IMF now, and if they're able to force that space open, then it will be for their greater good. But what was the other country? Places like Zambia, Zimbabwe, all those places, they're just deadbeat countries, and they're never going to get anything right there.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Ethiopia should be way bigger than Kenya when it comes to tourism, right? It's like they should. They have more ancient cultures. Like in Kenya, who do we have, right? Realistically, we got the Maasai, Samburu, same tribe, really. Maybe Rendile, Turkana. I think that's maybe El Molo. Yeah, there's a few tribes that we have that are like still living in a very traditional way that we can actually export. Ethiopia's got way more, right? You go to the whole Gambela region, Omotic region, you have so many tribes. You got Asi, you got the Nuaras, the Shilluk. All these people are still living in really like ancient ways. They could definitely be making money from that, and it's only recently that they've started doing it. They should have been exploited. Exploiting is not a bad thing, guys. Depends how you exploit things, right? They should have been exploiting their natural beauty. Like that country's got so many highlands. It's even got safari parks. They have everything, but they're not actually known for tourism. One man or Ajuran, do you guys really think of Ethiopia when it comes to tourism?
Well, I think. Oh, sorry. Go on, Ajuran.
Yeah, you make a good point. Kenya, with the zoos and all that, very known for the the wildlife and stuff like that. And you got the tribes as well, Maasai's and whatnot. They're very popular. Yeah, I don't know, man. Ethiopia should be doing good there as well. I think it's just the last few years they've had some few wars and stuff like that, kind of put everyone off going there. Yeah, I think Kenya much more better in that way, in tourism way. But yeah.
Ajuran, do you think Ethiopia should be the biggest country economically in East Africa? And do you think that Kenya has gone so far ahead now that it's near on impossible for Ethiopia to catch up with it now? Because if you think of Ethiopia, they have historical backdrops in two of the main Abrahamic religions, Islam and Christianity. So that as a driver of traffic alone, that should be a 10 billion minimum economy dollars to them. But they just seem, I'm not quite sure what's going on there.
Yeah, they should be 100% the biggest economy, not just in East Africa, but maybe even the whole of Africa. They've got a lot of, they've got a huge population. They've got the dam, they've got the Nile River. They've got history as well, as you said. Very popular with the West, so they've got the Christian history, so easily they love to come to Ethiopia and travel there, but because of the war and stuff like the coffee stuff.
Do you think they are afraid that Nigerians will come and take their women?
They should be doing much better. I think they're not. I think they're not. I think they're not as they don't. I don't think they care that much about their women as the Somalis. But no, I don't think they care that much.
That was just a joke, by the way. But no, I can see why a lot of economies in that East African coast are failing and would fail. But it always puzzles me somewhat, and somewhat even disappoints me that Ethiopia, and they have a good airline. So obviously they have some understanding of how economics and economies work. So why can't they just extrapolate that to all of the other advantages that they have and just leverage that to at least the biggest economy in that sub-region? And you are even suggesting maybe the biggest economy in Africa. So probably a lack of self-confidence in the administrators of that country. Maybe they feel if they liberalize it, they won't have, I don't get it, man. That Ethiopia has been a real puzzle to me.
So one issue here is also a lack of industrialization. So as this is just from this company here, Economic Complexity Index. They're giving like the top exports, right? So you can see coffee, $1.1 billion. So they're doing well with coffee. Gold, a lot. To be honest, the gold, they should really hold on to it. I know they needed to liquidate and get cash, but gold really seems to be appreciating in time significantly more than the dollar. Swedes, basically now it's agribusiness, right? The rest of it. How come I'm missing limestone? I'm missing fertilizer. Like, see, for example, if we know that, let's say, there's some things that, some axioms, like beginning logical statements that which you can rely on. Okay, the world's population is increasing. That's a fact. People need to eat food. That's a fact. Fertilizers are required to grow food, at a high yield ratio. Why not just take this loan, build a factory that produces fertilizers, and then start exporting fertilizers? Or do what Dangote is doing, right? A company that exports cement materials. I'm not seeing very heavy industrialization in the export.
Do you know that Dangote actually has the largest cement factory in Ethiopia? Yes.
Yeah, I knew that. Yeah, I used to work for an NGO, and Dangote Cement actually was one of the largest cement producers. Yes, so that's what Ethiopia should be doing. They should be exporting the resources that they have. They have limestone. They have things that are required to making both things like cement as well as fertilizers, and they're not doing it. You kind of wonder yourself, where's the money going that they're taking from these bonds? Right. Also, wheat. Why are they importing $1 billion worth of wheat? You see what I mean? Like, why wheat? You don't need to import wheat. You can grow it. You're literally renting land to the Saudis and Indians to grow their food, but you're importing it. And when you import, you're using Eurodollars. Like, I get it. If refined petroleum, you don't have petroleum, whatever it is, refineries. That's fine. But something like wheat, that's a low-hanging fruit that you should not be importing.
To be honest with you, I think it's a sacrilege for any African country to be importing any form of food at all. You know what I mean? What more do you need? It's unbelievable and inexcusable.
I think the wheat thing is to do with Russia, and how they give out aid and stuff to the TPLF region, so they get the wheat from there. So there's aid organizations that give a lot of wheat and whatnot. They give out that to the North Hungary TPLF basically regions. So that's what I think that's what it is.
Oh yeah,
they do the same in other countries. They always do the wheat. That's the UN stuff. That's definitely
in Kenya they do it too, and you have to pay back that money. That's what people don't understand.
Yep, that's a scam. It's a business, a UN business, man. They do the wheat. They do what's the other one?
There's usually ugali, maize as well.
Yeah, maize. It's like they do that to every country that that's low. They say they need food and whatnot. Then they send the same thing, and they make a business out of it. It's sad.
Kind of messed up, man.
It's reality. Most of that wheat doesn't even go to them. It's a joke.
Yeah, the government will resell it and shit.
Do Ethiopians consider themselves to be the same people as Somalians, Eritreans, and what's the understanding there? Especially Eritreans, but by extension Somalians. Do they see themselves as more or less the same people?
They see we're like similar people. To say that. Especially the Habeshas, they see themselves similar people. So Eritrea and Ethiopia, the Habeshas, certain tribes, they see themselves as the same. Somali is kind of different, but they kind of see themselves as the same with like similar people in terms of they lived in the region together basically, but just borders. That's all it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because there used to be this holy. Sorry, go on.
To give you a bit of history, Eritrea has a lot of shared history with Somalia, Djibouti and stuff, but also a lot of history with Ethiopia, since the people. Okay, the biggest tribe in Eritrea is the Tigrinya people. The Tigrinya people are also in Ethiopia. They're called the Tigrayans or Tigaru. So they're the same tribe, same language, everything. And they're the biggest in Eritrea. So they're also in Ethiopia. So yeah, the same people, a lot of Eritreans. Also Afar people are also in Ethiopia, which is another big tribe in Eritrea. There's also Afar. Realistically, they're the same people, right? And even Eritrea has some Somali population. Ethiopia's got like, I think it's the third. Somalis are the third largest tribe in Ethiopia. For example, it's Oromo, then it's Amhara, and then it's Somali. So yeah, generally speaking, they are very similar people. Yes, specifically Eritreans and so-called Ethiopians.
Who migrates the most within that East African coast? I imagine that it's Somalians, then everybody's country, and they are just
yeah. I would say, go ahead, Ajuran. What do you think?
It's probably the Oromos. Underrated, but Oromos, they travel throughout the whole region, even Middle East. They're everywhere.
What's their homestead? Where are they from originally? These are Oromos.
They are in the south of Ethiopia, basically, in South Ethiopia.
So that's where they're indigenous to.
That's where they're from. Well, there's a long story, but they live in that area and they move around to other regions. They're like the most they're the most populated in the whole region. Basically, they've got the most numbers. So they're in each other regions of the country. So they're in the Somali region, the other regions, and they're in Somalia, in our country. They're in the north. They're in Eritrea. Some of them are in Kenya. Some of them are in South Sudan. They're also a lot in countries like Yemen and Saudi. There's a lot of them. Oromos. So I'd say they're probably the most of all of us. But they're a weird group. I can't tell who's an Oromo. It's hard to tell. They adopt a lot of other people into their group, which is a different custom that normally we don't have.
But, they don't practice endogamy, one man. So like they might go take over a new tribe, and then that's why, let's say, if you see some of them look like I would say Nilots, some look like Habesha, most look like Somali, some look like whichever area they go in, they usually like, they will let you even kind of what's that word? It's like Maasai culture. They let you become them if you want. You just have to renounce all your previous beliefs. They're very expansionist, right?
A bit like the Fulanis, then always poking their noses into other people's spaces. But no, that East African space. The Ethiopians, especially, the world is looking to them to be a success story because you know how they have all these United Nations. Is it heritage spaces? You know, when they designate a space of world significance, Ethiopia is one of those world significant countries, which really it should really be the beacon within that East African coast. But I've always thought that it was religion that was holding Ethiopia back. Yes, I've always thought that.
Well, I think okay. So let me give a little bit of history. Ethiopia is a very new country, right? Just like most African countries. I think it was created, is it 1897 or something? Before that, it didn't exist. You had Abyssinian Kingdom, okay, the Habesha Kingdom. In the south, you had Oromia. Over there in the east, you had Ogaden. You had Ogaden was never part of Ethiopia, for example. Neither was Oromia. It was just really Abyssinia, aka the Habesha people. So Ethiopia it's a creation of colonialism, really, right? Because during colonialism, they realized, okay, the Europeans are taking over all of Africa. We don't want to get taken over, so we'll go down to the south. We'll invade the southern nations people. The Omotic, the Gambela region. We'll take over also Oromia region, and then we'll become a country, right? So they were, again, also just a colonial project. They created themselves because of the pressures of colonialism. And then, of course, Ogaden, that's a Somali region that was given to them by the British, etc. Just the same way the British gave Kenya the NFD, the Northern Federation District. So because they didn't want Somalis to be one, right? Because they were troublesome to them. So yeah, Ethiopia doesn't really exist, one man. And one of the issue is tribalism that's going on between the Habesha and the other groups. Because again, Habeshas have main character energy because of their great history, right? They did have a great history. So right now they want to let go of that history in for the malu of development. If you go to Baharda, you still see donkeys. Okay, right now I live in Masai land, right? I see donkeys everywhere. You go to most of Ethiopia, it's far less developed than this. As in, Ethiopia is a whole different country. It's only places like Addis that you're gonna see like actual development. You go to Harar, you're gonna see like ancient Islamic culture. You go to Gambela, you're gonna see like literally people living in like stone, like no electricity. It's literally like living in a different world. And I think they don't want to change completely because there is that sort of preference of, I don't know, the history and the past. That's what I believe.
Yes, they should let go of that past. Or maybe failing that, the Kenyans should just go in and superintend that space and civilize them. What are you even doing? Why are you not going in to civilize them?
No, I was in Ethiopia for like a couple. I was living there for at least a year. There's reason
not
why
you personally, Kenya. Why is Kenya not going into these spaces? All these little hub countries, Eritrea, Somalia. Why you not? You have the economy, you have the might. So why you not just go in there? Maybe put them as an outpost, maybe for about 3-4 decades, and bring them up to speed, and then hand the country. Why you not going there to colonize these people?
You don't want to mess with Cushitic like people, one man. These people are warriors and they don't give up. It's not like you dominate them, then they give up. And no, they'll be fighting you for the generations come. It's going to be one of those. And it's like when America went to invade those Arabs in Afghanistan and those countries. They don't give up, man. So you could decimate someone so much, but because they believe in freedom so much, no, that's just going to get Kenya in a stupid problem. Kenya's not going to win that war. There's no way. Like you think about it, one man. Yeah, go ahead, Adrian.
There's no invasion in East Africa. Yeah, there's Kenya's doing good. Just stay doing what they did. They'll get, because they are like the only country that's in the region that's basically economically doing well. They will have advantages, which is everyone is basically gonna go there and build the country.
But why are they not learning from the Kenyan model? So you have Kenya doing well, and you can see that.
They're just different. They have a different policy. It's just they've been like this for a while. I mean, I think the TPLF was doing different. I don't remember what they were doing. A bit different, but
they were doing different. But then good. TPLF actually developed Ethiopia a lot. The problem is they also stealing all that money as well. They took like
they developed their region. They developed their region. They got a lot of weaponry. Then they went to war. I think this war, big reason why they defaulted, I think, is because of this war, the recent war.
Yeah, that's true. Because they had to pay they have to buy so much.
Think about how much weaponry they had to get, and TPLF, they were fighting for a couple of years. I think it was 2 years maybe. That takes a toll on your economy if you're fighting for that long.
Yeah. No, Adjiran, you're right. So one man, the previous government was the TPLF, Tigrayans People Liberation Front. They ruled their government for, 30 years or something. Now, they did develop. Ethiopia was a shithole before they came in, right? There was no development. They built up Addis quite well. They built up the Tigrayan region really well. The problem is they kept putting all the money in their region and then also in their own pockets. So, yeah, they did develop Ethiopia, but they also stole a lot of money, billions and billions of dollars. So that's why people kind of wanted the change from them, and they're very much tribalist, just really only caring about the Tigrayan people, not caring about the rest of the country. I think Amharas are the ones who actually care about the country. But yeah.
I've always felt that there needs to be like a generational leap within. If we had people like Duran, for instance, or people of that mindset, rather than all these traditionally steeped in history, are locked in those sort of mindsets, and that's not just uniquely peculiar to Ethiopia, by the way. It's an African malaise. It's just too many geriatrics, too many dinosaurs running all these African countries. I mean, look at Uganda, that
30
Museveni
years to
tells us
70.
that he won an election by 90% after ruling the country for 40 years. How do you have that level of popularity ruling the country for 4 decades, and you're telling us you won an election by 80-90%? So that's really still where we are.
Yeah, I mean the election part. So okay, I don't fully believe in democracy. I say this: either be like Kenya and fully embrace the Western way, or figure out your own way. Because the issue is now mixing like Western stuff with some authoritarianism and all. That's when I think things don't work really that well. Just choose a path, right? Either be China. I think if Ethiopia wants to be, I think they want to be China, right? I think that's the model that they're going with. They want to be really insular, control the whole monetary, fiscals, and all that stuff. But I don't think this is the way forward because I'm not seeing the results. That's part of the issue there. Yeah. I think they're trying to model China. Government controls everything because right now Chinese.
Yeah, but they're not capacitated for that, though. They don't. They don't have. Yeah.
They're not even exporting any products, so they call. Yeah, at least with the Chinese, the yuan, it's actually a strong currency, right? It is traded around the world. Someone who buy the yuan, no, the yuan is bought by everyone because they need to buy Chinese products. But no one is going to buy a bid. Like, what's a bid going to do for someone? Like, one man, if I offer to pay you in bids from now on, it's going to be almost useless for you because by the time you get that bid back into dollars, you'd already lost 200% value of that money anyways. It's not really going to do you like the liquidity of the bid is not useful, but yen is, right? You can trade the yen so easily because people want the yen. I mean, even yen, right? Both. That's the situation. So yeah, I think Ethiopia just has to kind of change. Ethiopia is run by the UAE. What do you mean by that, Duale? Can you come and tell us what you mean by that? How can a whole country be run by by a UAE? You have to explain that. Do you mean influenced or run? Run is a strong word, Duale, right? That means the UAE are the ones creating the monetary policies. They're the ones in control.
No, but is there strong Arab culture there?
Actually, not really. Ethiopia doesn't have Arab culture. Interestingly enough, Ethiopia is okay. Ethiopians are mixed with Arabs, right? Like by Ethiopians, I mean Habesha people. They are like 50% Arab, according to like 2,000 years ago admixture, and then the rest is Nilotic admixture. However, culturally speaking, they're not actually Arabic culture. Yes, it is Arab-like in the sense that it's. I know what you mean, but actually it's very different. There's no one speaks Arabic is not a language there that people trade any amount.
No, I'm actually sorry, Kaiser. I'm actually going off the back of what DG is saying, that it's being run by UAE. So essentially, is the money underpinning that space? Is it because they have that culture, the UAE especially, that they'll pump their money into the dark shadows of a country, and then they start to manipulate it from there. So is it really being run by UAE money, that sort of money?
Oh, right. Okay. Okay. I would have to do research on that. I've not really. I know the people who UAE sponsor a lot. You have the Janjaweed in Sudan. They are heavily sponsored by UAE banks. We have we have some countries that UAE actually sponsors, right? I just didn't necessarily think. Al says yes, Dr. K. That's a fact. Yeah, I just don't. I've not seen UAE sort of running Ethiopia, and also I'm not too sure why they would want. Yeah, that's an interesting one. I haven't seen it yet. I will have to do research later to kind of figure out to what extent that's actually true, or if it's even true at all, because generally I just haven't really seen it. At that capacity.
All right. Why are you? Oh, hold on. I've got somebody at the door.